Have you ever wondered how schools in ancient Rome and ancient China were different? Well, if you have, there are many similarities and differences between them. So go get your swimsuits on and let's dive right in. The people of the Han Dynasty and the Roman Empire valued their education because having knowledge was very important to their lives. The people of the two empires thought it was very important for boys to either be in the military or become a man of a higher class. For girls in both empires, education didn't really matter because it wasn't essential for girls to be educated. Education was always dependent on your social class. Education was important to both empires because in order to get jobs, you needed to have a good education and have knowledge. In the Roman Empire, if you were a wealthy child, you received a better education than a poor child. Wealthy children were taught by their mothers before the age of 7. After the age of 7, the father would decide how to educate his son. Wealthy children would receive a bilingual education, which means they would learn to speak and write Latin and Greek. Boys were usually sent to school after the age of 7. Every student would have to bring money to pay the teacher of the school. In school they learned math, writing, and reading. Math was very difficult because they used letters for their numbers. For girls, education was taught very differently. Mothers taught their daughters to do household chores such as sewing, cooking, and cleaning. The girls of the wealthy families would be taught by a governess who would teach them how to read, write, sew, and cook. If they were wealthy, they would be sent to a school at the age of 7 to learn grammar. If you were a poor child living in the Roman Empire, you would be taught very differently than a wealthier person. Girls of the poor families would learn a little reading and a little writing from their mothers. Poor girls also learned some kind of trade in order to earn money for their future. Later in the Roman Empire, public schools were available to poor children. It took several years to teach the poor children to read and write in the schools because they weren't taught at a high standard. In the Han Dynasty, boys' education was more important than girls' education. The purpose of education for boys was to prepare them for the civil exam. The civil exam was a test that the boys took to see if they were qualified enough to become an upper-class man. Boys studied Confucianism, which taught them to be respectful to others and become a respectful gentleman. If you were a wealthy boy, you would go to a school or be taught by a tutor. If you were a poor boy, however, you would be taught by your mother or by your father. It didn't matter if you were poor or rich if you were a girl, because you still only had to learn to clean and cook. If you were living in the Rome or the Han Dynasty, would you rather be a girl or a boy? Think about that question. A modern-day school is very different than how it used to be during the Roman and the Han Empire. Education was very tough in the Rome and the Han Dynasty. Students had to wake up at sunrise every morning and go to school and then come home at sunset. They wouldn't even get time for holidays. They would spend long hours of studying and learning how to read and write. Girls, however, got the easy route because they didn't have to go to school or study for tests. Writing was very important to the Han Dynasty and the Roman Empire. The people of the Han Dynasty invented paper, which helped students study the art of writing. The Han Dynasty wrote calligraphy because they did not have an alphabet. They used calligraphy to write. Paper helped record history, keep track of time, and let students work on math. The Roman Empire used the Latin alphabet. They wrote in all capital letters on wooden tablets. In both empires, writing was a key part of a child's education. Education was very important to the girls and the boys of both empires. Education mainly depended on your social class. The wealthier you were, the more education you received. If you were poor, however, you received a little education, but it wasn't as much as a wealthy person would learn. Education impacted the Roman Empire and the Han Dynasty in many ways. Without education, people in the empires wouldn't have jobs and there would not be a social class.